Hey all, thanks for joining. Today we're going to talk about Harmony Browse and GenAI Protect, which go together to include some browser security as well as GenAI security again in that browser, both for web security, download security, as well as then data loss prevention services. So today we're going to have a discussion around the browsers and attack vector, just a couple of slides on that. Then we're going to talk about Harmony Browse and its capabilities. I'll show you what some of the protections will look like as your users get them, right? I'll have some screenshots of that for you. And then I'll additionally go into the portal itself and we can look at the admin portal and go through what, building policies looks like, how easy deployment might look, how you can look through all your different events and alerts and everything like that. Then we're going to talk briefly about Gen AI and some of the growth of that vector that exists in our world today and how people are utilizing more and more uh, different services with less and less governance. And then we're going to talk about how Gen AI Protect can help you to handle some of those situations that you have with your Gen AI worries with some of your employees. You can firstly get visibility into what they're using and how they're using different Gen AI tools, what levels of risk they're encountering, and everything like that. And then additionally, you can put in place some data loss prevention governance to dictate what they can and cannot, talk about with these AI tools, what they can and cannot upload, things of that nature. So firstly, with the browsers and attack vector. Um, obviously, as people have moved away from the office, most work is done, either remotely altogether, meaning that we're not behind the gateway, or just the idea that we're on a machine outside of the network remotely. So that really leaves us to, securing the endpoint and then, of course, securing different pieces on that endpoint. So as an example, the uh, the browser has seen more and more work. A Forrester survey from a few years ago commented that that employees work mostly or entirely out of the web browser. Um, as of 2024, there was an increase in browser-based phishing attacks of over almost 200% over that of the previous year. And I'm sure we can extrapolate this out to, 2025 and now into 2026 as well. I recognize some of this data might even be considered out of date already. But the long and short of it is that existing solutions aren't enough. There's traditional endpoint solutions that fail to address certain web-based attacks, and of course as well as the data loss. And then SASE solutions have the same type of problems. Of course, in the case of Checkpoint, both our endpoint and SASE solution come with Harmony Browse in order to shore up those gaps that do exist as a matter of technology. So here, Harmony Browse. This is the way you can protect your browsers. It's comprehensive browser security for all of your emerging threats. Within your organization, it acts as a last line of defense against web threats, data breaches, things happening in the browser. For the security teams and admins that you have, it's really simple management. And again, we're going to get into that in, I don't know, I'm guessing 10, 15 minutes, and I'll show you some of the portal stuff. And then in just a moment, we'll show you what some of the user experience looks like as well. But just so you know, there's no latency. You get all of the same, enhanced security and productivity that you expect. And there's really very little to no impact to your user's workflow. Um, it's really all in one solution. From a security feature perspective, there's a whole list here, but to quickly run through them, zero-day phishing and other phishing prevention, data loss security, and the Gen AI piece that I'm going to mention momentarily. Corporate password reuse protection. So you can see if you ever try and type in your corporate password to another site, it will block you because you're not supposed to do that. Um, Safe search within the browser, so you're able to go to websites without being at risk. That includes URL filtering and other types of services so that you can dictate what your users can and can't do. For downloads and the like, we have content delivery and remediation and then sandboxing tools so that we can make sure that anything you download is safe and secure and that all gets done prior to the file downloading to your machine. And then, of course, that goes hand in hand with blocking malware. Anything that, gets sandboxed that is determined to be malware is not downloaded to your machine. To get a quick look at what this looks like for your users, um, As an example, for a 0 day attack, if you or for a 0 day phishing attack, if you were to go to a website on your browser and try to go to a website, in this case, there's a website that's been blacklisted. The download site from cnet.com for this demo purpose has been blacklisted. If your user were to go to download.cnet.com, they would see this particular block page. It would give them the URL that was blocked, the site category, etc. As the admin of your system, you can of course change what this block page looks like to provide more information, to whatever, to act on it however you'd like. When we're talking about data loss, you're able to get a really good picture of what sort of things your users are trying to exfil out or of the organization. That includes, all of these sorts of charts, as well as a very granular policy built in, so you can have content aware and context aware data loss prevention. Certain files can't be uploaded. We do scans to see what's in those files. We will dive more into that in the portal in a second. I'll show you what the actual policy looks like, and that'll make clear how many different data types we have and how easily you can customize your own new data types and everything like that. Specific as it is to uh, the GenAI apps. This is a quick little video showing somebody copying and pasting. In this case, paste is blocked to ChatGPT. It, you can now see that it simply works. We can go through that, but as I'll show you in a few minutes when we talk about the DLP, uh, it's going to be a question of a few different methodologies. So there's going to be text control, that you simply can't type in certain types of texts. So, for example, PII or social security or credit card data or whatever. There's also copy and paste control, and that can be a question of what you're allowed to copy and paste in the same way as a moment ago. It also includes where you can and can't copy and paste from. So in this particular example, pasting is simply blocked, but it can be a little bit smarter than that. This is your corporate password. You're trying to log into a different site with the same password that you have with your corporate password. That's not allowed. That gets blocked. Prevents corporate password reuse and safeguards against other credential related theft, right? As far as malware is concerned, we do two main things as a part of malware protection. For starters, we do emulation and then extraction. So for emulation, we're doing the sandboxing that you know and love from lots of different things. Um, we're detonating the file in the cloud. We're seeing if there's any active content that does anything fancy, and then we're providing you a verdict on whether or not that file is clean. That generally takes that's generally pretty quick depending on the file. You can see on the bottom here, we say it's less than 2 seconds. If it's a large enough file, it could take a little bit longer. In those cases, and frankly, in all cases, but we additionally have thread extraction, which the animation here is showing you any file you download goes through the checkpoint thread extraction filter, and we provide you a copy of that file that is fully flattened. What flattened means is that any of the active content has been removed, any links have been removed, any photos have been removed, any embedded documents or any embedded files at all have been removed. And 9 times out of 10, this is all you need for your work is the actual data. Of course, you can go and request the original, but this provides you a little bit speedier of a workflow with no need for waiting for that emulation to take place. Of course, we have content aware. If you're trying to access a website that's blacklisted, you'll get the block site. We can block companies by URL filtering. We can also block policies by category as well. All of this, everything within Browse and really everything within Checkpoint as a whole operates through the Threat Cloud. So Threat Cloud is Checkpoint's, big data threat intelligence feeds where we get information from every Checkpoint customer, every machine, everyone across the world, as well as lots of other sources, things like the Cyber Threat Alliance, things like our partnerships with Microsoft and Amazon and everything like that. Um, it's a single pane of glass, as we like to call it. It's a single portal. I'm going to get there in a second. I'll show you within the portal how everything from Checkpoint lives there, and then I'll show you where Browse and the DLP section and the GenAI DLP really do live together as well. As I mentioned, we're going to go through and you're going to see, or as I mentioned just now, you saw some of the block pages, but that's really the only time your users will ever have any understanding that this product even exists on their machine, short of a small icon in the browser. Any file that gets downloaded as normal. Any block is simply a normal block page. So to quickly jump over to the GenAI tools, we're just going to talk about what the GenAI landscape looks like. Obviously, we're talking about it every day. Many of us are using it every day. Um, but in general, there's concerns around that because some of these AI apps are, should not be trusted necessarily. We don't know who the company is. We don't know where the data goes. And in general, as we use more and more of these things, there are more data loss risk and more events of that nature. So, what can you do to block it? There's some quotes from some consulting firms and other and specialists and things of that nature. So, as an example, some people just decide that they want to block ChatGPT. Uh, that's a you can do that. We can help with these two products that we're talking about today to fully block ChatGPT. However, you might want your employees to be able to use ChatGPT, and we want to be able to use it in a safe and secure way. You might want to be able to just put up guardrails. You're allowed to use it, but you want to be able to use it safely. So that's what we're here to talk about. Um, Obviously, the current risks or the current solutions are inadequate. That's why we're talking about these, our solution that today, Harmony Browse with GenAI Protect. To protect against Gen AI risk, you need a Gen AI powered solution. So I'm going to show you what that product looks like in the portal in but a second. But in the meantime, I wanted to just mention when we talk about being context aware, we truly are. Uh, our LLM classifies things really intelligently. So, as an example, if you're typing a prompt into ChatGPT to say that you're about to acquire $300 running shoes, that's not a problem. In the session overview, you're going to see that there are no sensitive prompts considered there. However, when we use the word acquire once again to acquire a company for 407 million, this is now something that we're context aware. We're able to recognize that this is a business and strategy type prompt that we're discussing the acquisition of a company. So in short, we're introducing, the Gen AI solution. I'm going to show it to you today. It's really about uh, data loss for those Gen AI tools and making sure that your employees can use those tools safely. So we're going to jump into a quick demo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second and reshare. Alrighty, just logging in and then I will share. All right, so here is my screen. This is the Infinity Portal. For those who are familiar, none of this is going to be all too new, but if you are unfamiliar, we can walk through it together really quick. For starters, big menu on the top left will show you all of the checkpoint products that are accessible from the portal. For context, that's pretty much everything. To go really quick, Quantum is uh, your internet gateways, those sort of things, the traditional firewall, SD-WAN networking, things of that nature. CloudGuard is within your cloud, CNAP, cloud application firewall, gate firewalls for cloud connectivity. And then lastly, Harmony includes all of the remote and work from home solutions. That includes the SASE, that includes the endpoint client, that includes Browse that we're talking about today, as well as GenAI, which is a piece of the SaaS application. Lastly, that includes mobile security for your cell phone and email and collaboration for email and other tools like SharePoint and Teams and the like. Um, you have several different tenants that you can use. You can sign up for however you want. Of course, in your case, you probably only have one tenant. I'm just jumping around for the sake of a demo. So we have already selected Harmony Browse, and we're loading up the overview screen right now. If this doesn't load up right, I will go back to my private. Okay, so when you first load into Harmony Browse, there's a couple of things going on. For starters, you're able to see what's going on in your organization at a glance. So you can see your total endpoints, you can see how many are active, you can see highlighted compromised data, you can see what events are occurring, and of course you can click on any of these to get to the logging screen, which we're going to show shortly. But logs are in the left hand side there. And this is all just a dashboard of a glance for the last 30 days. You can, of course, change the time frame. You can change what panels exist here, all that good stuff, just to give you the most pertinent information you want in the easiest capacity through an overview screen. Where the meat really starts to come is doing your actual policy. So as we mentioned, there's lots of different security features that can be turned on through Browse. I'm gonna quickly just run through how policy gets done and then what those securities look like. We're not gonna go super granular into each one today, but I do encourage anyone to reach out to me so that we can, in fact, go deeper. So firstly, just how a policy is made. I'm not a admin on this portal, which is why it's grayed out, but that doesn't matter. In short, you can create a rule, you get your rule name, you apply that rule, as functional being on or off or whatever it is. In this case, custom, we can go through what that looks like later, but it doesn't matter. And most importantly, you have applied to. So this is where you can put individual machines or users or groups from your Active Directory or any other identity provider in here and apply different rules to different people. That can be on a team basis, that can be individualized, and then all the way at the bottom you'll always have a rule that covers the entire organization. So for each of these rules, you then need to dictate on the right hand side what is happening within each policy, within each rule. As an example, we're just going to click in here. Web and files protection. The things that you're able to do would be prevent, monitor, or nothing. Prevent, detect, or nothing. So in fact, I can just go over to my personal to show you. So it's not grayed out. Cool. I just have obviously fewer machines, less of a demo environment prepared. So anyway, with these groups, you can see now I have a few different groups. I can put a rule into detect only, or I can flip it over to tuning, which is in learning mode, or optimized, which is then acting on the rule. Within any of these rules, just from the top down really quick, there's URL filtering, which again lets you dictate what websites your users are allowed to go to. There's file protection that includes emulation extraction, as we mentioned. There's password reuse policy as well as zero phishing, which is our checkpoint securities to make sure that there's no phishing on forms. If I go to type into a new username password field and it's not actually going to where it claims to be going, as in that's a phishing site, I will get blocked. Some additional features as well include just you can get a little bit more specific with these things. With URL filtering, you can apply categories. With file protection, you can set some guidelines around what supported files are, what are unsupported files, what we automatically do or don't emulate, right? Things like exceptions and things of that nature. That's all the web and file protections that we can do from here. Additionally, I wanted to point out data loss prevention features. And this is going to be where the GenAI and the browse really go in tandem because the generative AI DLP protections get acted on through the browser. So as an example, just as in the above, you have rules top to bottom. Rules can be applied to different users. We have a different policy for inbound and outbound events. As an example here, this actual policy, instead of being on the right-hand side, happens in the bottom for DLP. So as an example, we want to block all text to ChatGPT. We have within outbound events, we have text control to ChatGPT and paste control to ChatGPT. They're both blocked. If I tried to type anything into ChatGPT, in fact, we can do that. I won't be blocked on this machine. That's a lie. But yeah, if I were on this Rhine machine, I would get a block page the moment I tried to do it. In the same vein, if I select the next line down, you can see that I'm blocking PII, I'm preventing PII within text and paste control. So that is to say that will get acted on when I hit paste, and that will get acted on when I hit enter. Uh, if I hit enter and it doesn't include any PII, it gets sent. If I hit paste and it doesn't include any PII, it gets sent. In the case that it does include that PII, I would get the block page just like you saw before. To go over to show you the GenAI visibility page, overview page that lives in a separate section. I'm not sure why, but it is what it is. And then I need to go back to mine. So GenAI Protect lives in the bottom here. So when you first load up GenAI Protect, you also have a dashboard up on the top that tells you the different risky sessions you have by different applications, right? You can see a number of critical, a number of high, blah, blah, blah. You have access to all your different use case by category. You have sensitive data types also by category. Just as earlier, we can click into any of these and get have a more specific query queued in for you. If you click on financial information, it's now going to automatically key in the search with the preset filters for that financial information. However, just at a glance, some of the things that are really useful here are, of course, you can see total sessions, what their users are currently doing that they may or may not be allowed to do. As the admin, you can actually see the prompt as well. Maybe more interestingly for at a glance though is that you can see all the applications that your users are using. This is not something that you are not populating this list. This list is being populated by your users. Because again, we're plugged into their browser and we're able to understand what they're doing. We can filter through all these different things to see different sensitive data types and what people might be typing into ChatGPT, right? There's some employee information being uploaded to Poe. This user's appears to be sharing a detailed thing like a resume. This is the whole skinny. So you can go through all of the different sessions that your employees are using. And with the help of Harmony Browse, you're able to put up those safeguards and safety rails for things like, hey, we want them to be able to use ChatGPT, but we want to make sure that there's no way they could upload data type X or Y. And you can do that. To quickly go back to logging, because I know I said I would and we never did. If we can go back to browse, just to give you, that was an understanding there of what logging and event map capture looks like for GenAI, but I wanted to give you some of the same here. So you'll be familiar with this type of look from anything checkpoint. You can see the different websites that your users are browsing to. You can see all the different types of events that have captured recently. You want to see what event zero phishing, for example, has captured recently. We had somebody trying to log into Facebook, and the action was prevented as a result of, let's see, we can always take a look. So yeah, this was a phishing site is the answer. So this was on an endpoint within Chrome. Somebody was trying to log into a fake phishing site and it was blocked. So that's great. This is, and you can always search this way. You can always type in search features. This can be name, this can be domain, this can be any feature or any field that you'd like. Last thing worth mentioning is a little bit about deployment. So from a service management perspective, Harmony Browse is part of the endpoint suite. So the the management server is hosted in the cloud free of charge, and you're able to deploy through several different means. When you go to asset management, you can see what machines you have. It's not loading, right? But you can see what machines you already have there. And of course, when it comes time to deploy, you can take client settings from here and distribute them to your organization. But in short, this is a browser extension. So you just install the browser, and you're off to the races. In fact, because you're looking at my screen, I can show you. This is what the browser extension looks like. It's part of the Harmony Endpoint suite, so we call it Harmony Endpoint in the browser. but you can see an example of a cleaned file here that I downloaded. Of course, if I wanted the original, I could click get original and it would download straight away just into my downloads folder. Nice and easy. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, go back to my presentation for just a second here, because there was one last thing I wanted to mention before I thank you for your time. Whoops. I guess this is fine. I can just scroll through faster. So as I mentioned, the browser and endpoint work together to be a perfect solution for your organization devices as well as BYOD devices, anything that you can put a browser on, anything that you can put a client on. In addition, the endpoint or the browser client works perfectly in tandem with SASE as well. Part of the reason that it works so in tandem with both of these is that we really do have a consolidated platform regarding our workforce security. And that would be Harmony. So whether it be endpoint security, that SASE solution, uh, certain applications, email and collaboration tools, like I said, your browser security, like we've talked about today, or even that mobile security. If you've got a workforce that's not working in your office behind a secure gateway, these are the solutions that are going to work best for you. So again, I wanted to thank everyone for their time. And if you have any questions, want to have a deep dive, want to start your own trial, anything like that, let me or Dan know, and we'll get you started immediately. Thank you so much.